In a previous video, we discussed how all things, all of life, all of creation is part of one original thought. This is the first key in hacking our reality and elevating ourselves to a higher level of consciousness. To further understand what this means for our reality, we can refer to a quote by a book called The Kybalion, a study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece, originally published in 1908 by the three initiates. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open. The very first of the 7 principles corroborates what we learned from the raw contact. The all is mind. The universe is mental. This is the first foundational concept. Each of the following principles builds upon this foundational truth, and all function together. Thought is the medium of our existence. We can think of it as the clay we mold to shape our reality. This understanding allows us to execute more authority over what we experience. All is directed by our will, since our will is how we direct our thoughts. It is how we are able to consciously use the 7 principles together to focus our intent and shape our reality. The second principle of truth is, as above, so below, as below, so above. You are not separate from God or source energy, your higher self, or the all. We can think of this as your will and the will of God are also one. Many believe they must change their will to exactly what God's will is for prayers to be answered, and that they must somehow do what God says, or their life is somehow worthless and God will reject you. This second principle doesn't exclude your will. What you will, God also wills. You could become discordant with God. God in turn is discordant with you. But you are never separate. As above, so below. This is also called free will. You are a sovereign being, and your free will must not be violated. This understanding allows you to stand in your power. How your will, which is also God's will, is carried out is addressed in the third principle. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Space.com tells us that our orbital speed around the Sun is about 67,000 miles per hour, 107 kilometers per hour. The Sun and the solar system appear to be moving at 200 kilometers per second, or at an average speed of 448,000 miles per hour, 720,000 kilometers per hour. The Milky Way, too, moves in space relative to other galaxies. In about 4 billion years, the Milky Way will collide with its nearest neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy. The two are rushing toward each other at about 70 miles per second, 112 kilometers per second. We are hurtling through space at incomprehensible speed every second of our lives. This does not even take into account how fast the Earth is spinning. And as we travel, all of our atoms and molecules are also swirling in circular patterns at even greater rates of frequency. Everything truly is in motion. Everything vibrates. and everything we do contributes to the speed of frequency. To simplify the concept of vibration, we can think of it as sound frequency, since even light frequency is technically a sound vibration. Everything that exists is singing in a grand choir together. The mind is also constantly and forever in motion. When we think we are at rest, asleep, or meditating without thought, we are still learning. Some frequencies are singing in harmony and blend well together. Those that do not are dissonant and are out of frequency with us, but never separate. This illusion of separation is addressed in the fourth principle. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. How hot is hot? There is no marker on the thermometer to indicate when hot is reached. What we might think of as swelteringly hot outside is not nearly hot enough to forge a sword. How far up is up? When you fly as high as an eagle, you are still below the sun. Even a magnet that appears to have apparent separation from one end to the other is actually a single continuous field internally, creating the illusion of opposites. This means that we are never fixed in our ways or beliefs or our movements. Understanding this principle allows us to be flexible and flow with the movement of the universe and function in harmony with the all. How the reconciliation takes place is addressed in the fifth principle. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. This principle allows us to experience changes in ourselves and our environment. We see this in our seasons and our astronomical cycles. We may think we have moved completely out of alignment with some aspect of our reality. But this movement is what allows us to experience the song that the frequencies sing as they vibrate, as described in the third principle. When we consider the range of motion of all things, including mind, we realize that everything is always in balance, and we can execute our will upon our reality by swinging the motion of distress to peace, depression to joy, and fear to hope. We can intentionally move our will to be in resonant frequency with what we desire and in harmony with the will of God or the original source energy. As we execute our free will, this is how Source moves its will to be in resonant frequency with us, allowing our free will to be explored. If you are experiencing anything extreme in one direction or the other in your emotional response, one method of swinging the pendulum in the opposite direction is to focus on the opposite sensation or frequency. This concept is discussed in the Kybalion. However, it is not the only method, especially when you feel very stuck emotionally. And since all is the mind, this work is mental. Another method you can use to transmute your reality is to push it even further into the direction you do not desire. so as to increase the rate of frequency of the counterbalance, to speed it even faster into the direction you desire. You can do this by allowing and increasing. If you are sad, let yourself be sad, then increase the sadness to the extreme. When you resist a seemingly negative frequency, you are fighting against it. When you go with it and increase it, and allow the emotion to exist, and build it to the greatest degree using your free will to push the emotion even greater into the sadness, it must counterbalance itself. It releases into the opposite direction. As we act on our free will, we operate within the sixth principle. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. I like to think of this principle as a type of safety net and an expression of free will in perfection. If things appear to be unchanging, or in a configuration we do not like, we can affect change using our free will. How we do so may appear at first to be a mystery, but everything is being acted upon by our own will in synchronicity with the will of the All. Everything we experience, we agreed upon on some level, since our will is also God's will, whether discordant or not. If there is anything that doesn't seem to be as it should, there is always a cause and a purpose to it. If you feel stuck in a non-preferred state of being within your reality, you can ask yourself, what am I learning? When the learning is complete, the cause is also complete and no longer acts upon us, and the pendulum can swing the opposite direction. This opposite state of being is described in the seventh principle. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. In traditional Chinese medicine, yin and yang represent gender. The hot sun is masculine. The cool moon is feminine. Every food you eat causes a heating or cooling response. Even human skin complexion is described as warm or cool and corresponds to the color chart. All are gender-oriented. Both male and female qualities are required to produce new life and new thought, and female characteristics can be expressed in the male and vice versa. If there is any aspect of your partner or the opposite sex that you admire, such as dominance versus submissiveness, leading versus following, hardness versus gentleness, you can learn to express gendered attributes within yourself to achieve a better balance within your life and in your relationships with others. This balance helps prevent you from relying too strongly on your partner, and it prevents you from lacking anything if you do not have a partner. Since this polarity exists within you, applying this principle allows you to live a life in complete wholeness. When you use these 7 principles together, mentally executing your free will with intention and focus as a sovereign being in full understanding, you can transmute anything and live in harmony with the All, and will have obtained the magic key.